I'm Lee Penglia and I'm the head of CRPD for Scotland and Northern Ireland, for those of you that don't know me. Hello. So warm welcome to our second event that we are running, exploring the idea of the 4-day working week in Scotland and how could it work in practice. So our first event in, I think it was October, a few weeks ago, explored the concept of the 4-day working week, mostly from a policy perspective. Considering some of the challenges and opportunities. And this follow-up session addresses some of the more practical considerations for people managers that were highlighted in the first discussion that we didn't really have a chance to cover. So we've only got an hour in the diary, so I'm really conscious not to use up too much of that hour. And what I would like to say is we couldn't be any more on topic than we could be. Than even if we were before, considering the news article about Unilever today, which Charlotte may pick up on. And also, some of you might be aware that at the SNP conference, there was a call on the Scottish Government to undertake a review into how working practices could be adapted to meet the needs of a future economy, including the possibility of a 4-day working week. So that was just in the last couple of days. As well as more support for people to continue to work from home or closer to home, etc. When Scotland perhaps at any point in the future gains more control over its employment rights. But anyway, how topical is this session? So we have two speakers today. We have Charlotte, who joined us before, who I'm delighted to say joins us from the second time at a very early hour of the morning in New Zealand. And also Lorraine Gray, who's a director of Pursuit Marketing, who's going to join us a little bit later to talk to us about their experience of a 4-day working week. Both will spend about maybe 15-20 minutes talking through, sharing some thoughts, and then we'll open it out for questions. We are recording this session so that people can listen to it later. If you can keep yourself on mute and use the Q&A function to ask any questions, please. And I will pass over to Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte.
Hello. Well, so good morning, or morena, as we would say here in New Zealand. It's great to be involved again. I'm so excited about this Unilever news as well. We've been working with them for a little while now, just over a year, and I've been itching to tell you all about it. So really pleased to be able to talk about that. We had our policy discussion, which really talked about why the 4-day week is a good idea, and talked about that more from a theoretical perspective. But today's session is realistically to be a lot more on the practical side of things. We had a couple of questions left over from the previous session that people asked, so I'm going to deal with those right away, because if you were in the session last time and you're going, where's my question answered? I'm going to go straight into that. So the first one is, what are the learnings that we had from our trial? I'll deal with that next, but the first one is, if a 4-day week means that full-time employees work one less day on the same pay, what does it mean for employees on different work patterns? Now, this was a really good question, actually, because our own head of HR, when we started doing the 4-day week, was already working a 4-day week, but on 80% pay. And she thought that was incredibly ironical that she was getting a benefit for everyone else. But then through that, and that's why you run a trial, because you nut out some of these answers ahead of time. During the trial. You can't necessarily answer everything ahead of time. But what we came with the trial is a principle that we call the 100-80-100 rule. So what we're saying is that you get 100% pay. So whatever the pay you are on now, your work cycle that you're on now with this pay, you work 80% of the time, and you have to provide that 100% of the output or outcomes that you are doing now on your 100%. So if your 100% is 3 days, then you're looking at how do you make that 3-day work cycle down into an 80%. Now, also don't get hung up on it being the 4-day week. Realistically, what we're talking about is a reduced hour working week. For many organizations, it's almost impossible to close the door for a whole day. And certainly in our business, that was one of the conditions. We said to our staff, happy to do this. This is what we're looking to do, but we can't close the doors for a day because, you know, we have customers that need to have this available, you know, our service available all the time. So we challenged our staff to find ways to be able to take the time off. Now, during our trial, most of them actually took a day off, and it might have been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they actually went there. But now we actually work on a reduced hour work model. And the reason why that works for our business is, one, customers always have people to be able to talk to. But two, it means that as we work through and we grow and we mature into this, people can take the time off that best suits them. Because let's face it, it's the ultimate staff benefit, isn't it? We want to give you time. I can give you life insurance or medical insurance or any other benefits. I can pay for your gym, but actually the thing that you really need is time. So what I want to do is give you the sort of time that you can spend appropriately. So if you have a young family, I mean, we've got a guy in our IT team who walks his daughter to school every day. That's the time he wants. So he does that. So he arrives at work every day at 10 o'clock, having done that little morning routine, something so special to him. Now, arguably, if he stays with us for a period of time, his daughter's not going to want him walking him to school anymore. And he might want different time. He might want to leave at the end of the day to help her with homework. He might want to take time off in the middle of the day to do some further education at the university up the road. So having the ability and the flexibility and the agility in your mind to be able to offer people the time off that best suits them actually makes it stronger, because they will work hard to keep it. It matters to them to keep it. Whereas, you know, gym memberships only matter if you care about going to the gym. Life insurance for a lot of young people just doesn't mean anything at all, because of course they're bulletproof and they're never going to die. So this is the benefit that really makes a difference. The trial is the key. So let's just talk you through a little bit of the process we've gone through with Unilever, because I think that really explains it a lot. So met with their head of HR, global head of HR, a fabulous woman called Lena Nair. Follow her on LinkedIn. She's obviously got a great social media profile because someone else manages it, but she's really interesting, and she puts up really interesting posts. So if you're in HR at all, she's a really good person to follow on LinkedIn. But so I met with her, and it was great to talk through all of the different options, because of course, one of the things that COVID's given us is this whole concept of, well, how do we add in remote and flexible working additionally? And so we had long conversations about the issues with that, because of course, culturally, I mean, Unilever's, I think, in 180 different countries around the world, and they employ some phenomenally large number of people, 150,000 people, something. Obviously one of the largest employers in the world. So what they have decided is that they're going to launch this trial in New Zealand, largely because we are here, but also it just means that they can eat this elephant one bite at a time. They can do a controlled trial. They can take the learnings from that, and then they can find which other offices, Australia will probably be the next one, which other offices they can apply those learnings in. And because the key thing to understand here is that my 4-day week won't look like your 4-day week. And Unilever's New Zealand 4-day week won't look like their UK 4-day week, because each market that you're in, there's slightly different culture, there's slightly different legislation, and there's just slightly different ways that your division of your business might run. So you don't have to worry about how do I apply something uniformly, which is also back to the slight policy discussion, why I'm not keen on this being legislated for, because it's to get the full benefit, because you need the productivity as well as the time off. To get the full benefit, you actually can't legislate a single form of the 4-day week. So we started talking with Unilever, and we started talking with their senior management, and they came back to us with lots of really micro questions and we started answering those, which is the sort of process we always try and make sure. And you will have, I'm sure in the chat, there'll be lots of micro questions that come up. The trick is to understand that the leadership team are not the people who can solve this. So I was talking to another large international organization yesterday, and the leaders all had their list. And I'm like, but don't forget, these are questions. How will I do this? How will I do that? These are questions that the trial will shake out. So the key thing that the leadership team and the board need to understand is that if they would like to go down this road and have a conversation with your people about what is productivity in your business. So and people go, oh, how do I measure productivity? Well, you know, it's one of the biggest conundrums we face in business, but that's one of the things that the 4-day week trial helps you solve. So just relax into that and let your people help you. So the trial will be designed by your people and signed off by the board. So it's a real mind shift change. C-suite do not like the lack of control, but you can't control this, and you can't prepare for it, and you can't fix it, because the productivity benefits that you get as part of this program come from your staff applying themselves to, you know, the problem around, well, okay, so I do this all day. Is it productive? Does that lead to what the company wants at the end of the day and the company defines as being productive? So if you're producing widgets, it's easy, right? How many widgets do I produce? But then there's all the things around quality. There's all sorts of things around the mechanization of the production line. So what happens is your people will look at what they do and they'll go, right, I can do that faster. I can do that better if I've got a piece of technology that goes with that. I can do that, or this particular thing that I do, actually, now that I'm clear about what my productivity is just meaningless. So I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm going to do a little bit more of that. And I'm going to work better with this person. And we're going to job share a bit of this here, so that when I'm away, that person can deal with some of the stuff on my job. And that was one of the things that we found really good. I mean, we've got 240 staff, so we've got a reasonable number of people, but there are some people in our organization where it's just one person doing a job. So we had this greater clarity around what that person truly did in the day, so that others could support them to be away from work. And that's great for business resilience. That's a really good thing in your business. Hello, Lorraine. Great to have you join us. So it's an exciting time. So the trial is key, and through the trial, we only did 2 months. I mean, we like probably many of you on the call, we're an owner-operated business. We were able to, you know, be agile and decide that yes, it had worked, and we wanted to move on to making it permanent. But most organisations, and I'm sure if you've Googled it, most organisations around the world, they do sort of between 3 and 6 months. Unilever are doing a whole year. And the reason why organizations do a whole year is it gives them 12 months worth of numbers, which obviously, if you've got an external board, sometimes the numbers is the bit that gets people across the line. When it's an owner-operated business, it's the numbers, but it's also, oh gosh, this was the best team building exercise I ever did. Oh, I love coming to work now because my team is so engaged. There's a whole pile of that, what we, you know, that soft stuff that is an owner-operated business is why you're in business. I mean, we like our businesses, and we like it if we like going to work. So we have that. With flexible and remote working being as important as it is now, one of the things we really do need to be worried about, and I'm sure that this is something that all you guys are confronting, is the fact that we're now sleeping at work. You know, we used to take work home, and it used to impinge on our home life. We're now sleeping at work, which is what work is when it's at home. And so actually how we create those boundaries. Now, one of the great things about, or tools for creating those boundaries, is being clear about what productivity is. So by going down this process, you're actually empowering your people and giving them the right to switch off. And you know, if you're a good employer, that has got to be top of your mind at the moment. Now, not all employers will want to go down this road, and you know what? Leave them to it. Do not be distracted by all the naysayers who think and you know, swear that this will never work. Do not be distracted by them. Just go ahead with what you think is right. Work with your people around what your new normal is. So piece of advice, don't overthink it. It's the most simple piece of advice. If you're on the leadership team, do not overthink it. If you're not on the leadership team, then put together a case that says, you know, the research is already out. I mean, the 4-day week works. There is just, you know, 2 years ago, I was having to convince people as to why it worked, and also we know it works. That question has been answered. We know it works. The question is how to make it work in your business. So if you're not on the leadership team and you're wanting to try and encourage people into a 4-day, or your business into a 4-day week, then all you have to do is persuade them to run a trial. So I think that's probably close to my time. I see Lorraine has joined us on the call, so it's been wonderful to hear what her experience has been like with the 4-day week.
Thank you, Charlotte, for sharing that, those nuggets so far. Lorraine, are you...
Lots of questions in the Q&A.
Lorraine, are you able to take over now?
Yes, absolutely. Apologies, for some reason I've got really poor connection today, of all days. It's typical, isn't it? So if I drop, I do apologise in advance for that. But yes, absolutely. I'm delighted to share the story of Pursuit Marketing and our 4-day week. So we started our 4-day week officially across the business in September 2016, so over 4 years ago now. As Charlotte mentioned, in terms of recommendations for other companies considering it, we did start in June with a trial, and within that trial we had around 20 staff. That very quickly proved its success and its worth, and in September 2016 we expanded the 4-day week across our full business. At the time in 2016 when we launched the 4-day week, we had around 130 staff. We now have 850 staff spread across Glasgow in Scotland, Spain, Tenerife, Turkey, and we're just about to open in Estonia. So it's been a crazy few years in terms of growth, but what's really differentiated ourselves in the market and attracting the best talent across all these countries is bringing our 4-day week and our unique approach to work-life balance and culture in the workplace to these countries where traditionally they've got very long working hours and quite poor conditions. So the 4-day week's been fantastic for us in terms of the success of our own business and the well-being of our people, and for them it's what's ultimately important to us. They're our biggest asset, and we rely quite heavily on their feedback and what motivates them for success. As Charlotte said earlier, you know, some people have gym memberships and some people have different incentives, and that's all great. Different things drive different people. For us, we have a dedicated wellbeing manager who works with our team on a quarterly basis to set what we call hard and soft targets. So their hard targets are what they need to achieve to be successful in their role, and their soft targets are what they want to achieve in their personal life within that quarter. And for some people that could be saving for a holiday, it could be beating a personal best in the gym, it could be spending more time with the kids, and we work with them to achieve that across a number of incentive programs. I think our 4-day week has probably been so successful because it has been part of a wider and more diverse wellbeing program. We have all the things. We have extended lunch breaks of 1.5 hours so that our team can participate in free fitness classes at lunchtime. And the gym isn't for everyone. It's certainly not for myself. I'm not the greatest at the gym, but we have things to suit every age, every ability. And we also have mindfulness classes. We have Spanish lessons. We have all sorts going on. So it's using that lunch break more productively to clear your mind. If you've had a tough morning in the office, it's not always easy. We find that extra time really resets your mind for the afternoon. So that's reflective across the whole business, whether it's the 4-day week, flexible working, longer lunch breaks. It's not about presenteeism. It's about achieving success in your role within shorter hours. If you can do that, then why not? So we're not rigidly set to what someone has to achieve in the office from 9 to 5. They have tasks to achieve, and if they can do that quicker, then absolutely they can do that and have more time at home or what they want to do. But the 4-day week has certainly been pivotal to our success in the market, both in the UK and across Europe. And it continues to get such huge attention. I mean, to launch it in September 2016 and today still be talking about it is testament to that. We've had the pleasure of speaking at a number of events in the UK and in Europe about the 4-day week and encouraging other employers to think in the same way. And again, go back to what Charlotte had said about it being, for a lot of people, about figures. And we're a very data-driven company. We measure everything. Our mantra is, if it can't be measured, it can't be improved. So in every business function, at every level, there are clear data indicators of success and KPIs and what people need to achieve. So we can measure the success of the 4-day week really easily. Initially, we achieved productivity spikes of 37%, taking into account the reduction to a 4-day week, which was massive. Now, we put a lot of that down to the initial excitement of the 4-day week and the team not wanting to lose that opportunity once they had it. So they really wanted to prove it could work, and they were on board with us, and as I'm sure you can imagine, to achieve that. That's now settled, and over the 4 years the productivity increase equates to 29.2%, so just under the 30% increase in productivity. And that's been massive for us as a small business to really take ourselves forward and put ourselves forward as being an agency which our clients can rely on to achieve the best results for them with the most motivated and committed and loyal team. We encourage our team to use their 4-day week wisely, so we've also invested in training programs externally for them. So if we have an annual training budget, they can let us know if there's something they would like to do on the Friday, and we'll support them to do that. Anything around improving, upskilling themselves or improving their well-being, we absolutely champion that. And we also partner with some charities around volunteer days. We've been clear with the team that although we pay them for the Friday, it's their day, but what we'd like to see them doing is giving something back from that. So we also commit to some volunteering time throughout the year as well. So it's been really nice from a corporate social responsibility perspective and team building to get out and get involved in local projects and really make best use of that free time and not just lose it by the general chores of household life. So it's been really, the feedback has been great, and I think for us, it was breaking the barriers initially of people thinking flexible working was for working mums and it was for females, and there was a lot of I guess misperception or misconceptions of what that would look like. And that's why the pilot was so important, to have people of all ages and all backgrounds involved in that, so they could really feel the benefit of the 4-day week. And it's been hugely successful, as you've heard, for us in that way. I hope that's useful to you.
And I think I'm just picking up on your idea about it not just being for working mums. I mean, often, around the world, I mean, Microsoft have hired a person to answer this conundrum. I mean, we've all had flexible working policies in place for probably close to 10 years. No one properly uses them because it's determined really by your line manager, and how much your line manager considers a flexible working policy is whether you get it or not. And so it's never evenly applied across a business. And so therefore, when businesses take this to their heart and they go, we are a reduced hour working business, a 4-day week business, then it's everyone that's doing this. I think, Lorraine, your point about making sure people use the time and have quality, and we have a similar thing. We have 4 charity days a year with the time off that we do. And it's really important that people understand what to do with that time and not get it soaked up in chores. We, in New Zealand, we can't force our staff, because of legislation. It's probably very similar in the UK. We can't force our staff to take the 4-day week. We have to encourage them to do it. So initially, we have an opt-in contract, and initially it was only the people who were doing the 4-day week that did the charity days. As of 2021, everyone's going to do the charity days, because any of those who've chosen not to, I don't know why, to work a reduced hour model, we just figure they need more life, right? So if we give them charity work to do, then we're actually showing them what else they should do with their time. So it's, having a 4-day week workforce is not set and forget. It does require effort, but then so does everything else, doesn't it, Lorraine?
Absolutely, and I think it's about valuing that time, and doing exercises like that certainly enforces that. I think something we've always been conscious of is the mental health of our employees is hugely important to us, and we're real ambassadors for that within the workplace. And there's so much mental health sickness absence in the UK, I'm sure it's the same in New Zealand as well, that to counteract that is about having that extra time for self-care, doing something that you enjoy, that you're part of, and that you appreciate, whether that's going out and get involved in a community project, or whether it's actually spending time with the company counsellor, whatever it may be, to improve your own mental health and well-being, and have that time to adjust so that you don't get overloaded by work is so important to us.
Well, I mean, the UK loses 15 million worker days through workplace and mental health stress. So if we could bring all of those worker days back into the workforce, which 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of your workforce is facing those sort of stresses. So by having this program in place, you're actually giving them the rest they need. You're giving them the opportunity to go be, on the mindfulness course, or you're giving them those things that support their mental and physical health. There's a question here about the 100-80-100 rule. Yes, absolutely. So 100-80-100 is how you deal with part-time staff. And then there's another question here about nursing, teaching and hospitality. So the reduced hour work model works in any industry. It's just going to be slightly harder in some. But there's a care home in the United States that decided to bring on the 4-day week, mainly because in nursing, in those care environments, often they're quite low paid, and it's the same in the UK as well. And so as a result, people are sometimes presenteeism is an issue, and actually people then conversely actually turning up rather than doing something else. And so what they decided is that they introduced the 4-day week. So they said, if you in the past month haven't taken any other than sick leave or annual leave, so I'm just not ringing in and saying, oh, I'm not coming in today, then you got the 4-day week. And actually the numbers worked for them because they could stop paying agency nurses, right? So it's actually about, and the quality of care to the patients and the people in the home, the residents, went up enormously because they had a much more consistent approach to the medical care that they were getting. Hospitality is the same. There are restaurants that only do 4 days. I mean, COVID, in pre-COVID times, they've just made a decision that they actually their business, they want to provide the best service over a shorter period of time. So that's just the closing your doors policy. But otherwise, what you're looking at is actually having people that come to work that are truly engaged. And so you've got the waitress upselling the dessert. You've got you've got all of those things. Teaching is another one. Obviously, you need the board of governors and possibly the government or whoever might be the overall employer of a school to agree to reduce hours. But if we think about it, what we're talking about is using the time really wisely, so that you can actually go and use the time that comes out of it spare. So that works for the pupils and for the teachers. Slightly more complicated if our entire workforce isn't working a lot more flexibly than it is, but it's not impossible. And so, I'll say to people, if you're in an organization, then remember the key thing is get the staff, get the employees to solve the conundrum, because they will find ways to make that work that you hadn't imagined. And so therefore, actually handing it over and then taking it out is the way that you go with that. It's no one says it's easy, but it isn't impossible.
A couple of other questions. I'm just going to pose them.
The public sector. no one thinks the public sector works, right? But the public sector, for the large part, I mean, so if we're ignoring teaching, police, and you know, the very active ones, if we're just talking about civil servants sitting behind a desk, they work in an office just like everybody else. There's no reason why the civil service shouldn't actually be working a 4-day week. In fact, you know, just quietly between us girls, you know, that we've spoken to them, so they're, you know, they're not uninterested in the whole idea. They know it's got to be something that will, you know, will be there. And something that they have to start confronting. So it's, you know, there is a perception around the way they work, but that just comes down to how you communicate, how effective you are. I mean, if you just introduced a 4-day week and it just resulted in long queues getting your planning permission or anything like that, then you can't go down it. It has to be about improving the service. And Lorraine talks about basically a 30% uptick in productivity in her business. So it's that productivity improvement is there. And when it's demonstrated and it's proven with measuring it, then actually you can't argue that it's the wrong thing to do.
Thanks, Charlotte. We've also had a question come in the chat function asking about do you know of any case studies in manufacturing that people can look at?
Yeah, so there are. So the interesting thing. So here's one. So I had a connection connecting to me a while ago, and I thought this was a really interesting example. So she works, was working at the time on the graveyard shift in a manufacturing plant. So the least productive shift. And it's, you know, it's a pretty horrible time to be working over the night. And they were all sitting in the cafeteria during their break, and they were kind of moaning and groaning about their job roles and how it was run and all that. So they were kind of like, so this is the ultimate employee re-engineering. They went, look, I'd quite like to do your job and I'd quite like to do yours, and if we did this differently, we could do this. And through their lunch break, they actually re-engineered the way that their production line worked. Obviously not the physical machines, but certainly the way the job roles and how the people who did the job actually did it. And they took this to their employer and they said they were just looking to do it from a happiness perspective. They just wanted to enjoy work more. So they took this to their boss and they said, look, can we try doing it this way? And their boss sort of hummed and hawed and then went, okay, fine. They got their manufacturing targets done by the middle of the fourth day. So effectively Thursday lunchtime. So and that was just because they saved what they wanted to do. Gap brought out an app. It's not quite manufacturing, but certainly in retail, they brought out an app that allows their staff to shift and swap, change and swap shifts. And the benefit of that was that it was really, they brought it out because it, you know, obviously changing shifts in an organization like that is just a nightmare, and it's probably a full-time job for about 10 people. They brought out an app which allowed, you know, the staff members to do it themselves. So what they found was that actually they sold more jeans because people are at work when they're engaged to be there. So at its heart, we are talking about how you make people engaged at work around what you want, which is a productive outcome. And when you give them stuff that enables them to give what you need, they will actually run away and do it. But you have to be clear as to what you need. And that's why we always talk about find out what the productivity is, learn how to measure that. Lorraine measures everything, which is fantastic. Most businesses don't. But this is actually a way in which it will help you measure a whole pile of things. Lorraine, your productivity measures and the things that you measure, has that, I'm assuming that's gone, your ability to do that has gone up since your people started on this journey?
To be honest, we've always measured very closely. You know, as a small company in Glasgow, we started 9 years ago. We've always been results driven and very performance driven, and we were, or still are, the only market agency to guarantee results for our clients. It's always been really important to have a well-trained and loyal and committed workforce, and the only way to do that is to measure success across projects at every single level. So we've always done it. The 4-day week heightened our need in some ways, which is quite sad to justify that, particularly to our finance director that wasn't quite as on board as we were at the outset, because finance directors, as they do, look at things as a cost. We had to very much position this was an investment. It was an investment in our people and in the business, and we were confident it could take us to another level and really differentiate ourselves in the market against our competitors, both in the UK and internationally, which is absolutely done. And what's been fantastic is some of our clients who work with the largest technology companies in the world, and they are now considering running trials and following suit, because as a business, your concerns are always going to be, you know, what if our 4-day week works because we close effectively on a Friday. So how would that affect a customer? If a customer needs something on a Friday, what impact would that have? But actually, when we rolled it out and we collaborated with them during that transition period and explained how it was going to work, they absolutely championed it. And they're aware of timescales and expectations, and they know that if there's a Friday, then they could get something urgently and get one of me or one of my senior team on a mobile. Thankfully, it's never happened, but they could do that. But they had the confidence that it would work, and that really helped us to push forward and do it. So I think it's about collaborating with your clients, with your suppliers, and making sure that the model's in place to support. Every organisation is uniquely different in what they do, and I totally appreciate that. But you will have periods that you could look at and think, right, could we be more productive in that time, or could that be a time where we could give our staff a bit more flexibility?
And I think that's so key, communicating with your customers and letting them really understand why you're on it. I mean, John Nash, who's been doing it for a similar length of time as Lorraine down in London, he said this when he first started doing it. His top client, who represented 70% of his business, hated it. And he used to ring John on a Friday and say, John, I can't get hold of my client manager. And every Friday, John would just explain to him, look, mate, this is why I'm doing this. And he still has that client today. So sometimes it's just about taking your clients on a journey. There's someone else that used to send out an email at the end of their work week to their clients and said, and just said, hey, look, just reminding you of what we're doing. And he would ask them a couple of questions. Look, please let me know if this has impacted on you this week. And please let me know if you think there are any other suggestions. And he got answers for the first couple of weeks. And then after that, he didn't. People adapt. And so, we have this whole sense of being very urgent, but actually your clients adapt to what you're doing when they truly understand it. So communication.
And Lorraine, I'm just going back a wee bit, but one of the questions that Charlotte talked about earlier, kind of part-time workers, but it was kind of aimed about the fact that you guys close on a Friday, and that might not be the day off that necessarily everybody wants. They might need a different day. So I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about how you kind of dealt with the situation where if people need a different day off, or if they're a part-time worker and it's not necessarily a Friday that they had off before you introduced it.
Of course, at the outset when we ran the pilot, we tried it across different days of the week, and where we would have most success as an organisation, and the Friday seemed to be the one that the employees favoured more. So that was very much part of our decision making, that it was something that they were engaged in and wanted to have. At that time, fortunately, we didn't have any part-time workers who wouldn't get the benefit of it. We had some who worked less hours across days, but that included a Friday, but we didn't have anyone who already didn't work a Friday that wouldn't then get the benefit of that day off, so to speak. And now with our recruitment and people knowing it's a 4-day week, I guess their approach to the role is different because they already know there's flexibility there, and we champion other types of flexible working. So what has been nice is people who were already working flexibly certainly still get the benefit of the 4-day week. But even if they've worked shorter hours, Monday to Thursday, they were worried they would lose that for the Friday, and it certainly wasn't that. It wasn't a one or the other. It was both. And the people, I know I said it's not for parents, only parents, but a key benefit we've heard back from the team is, particularly for people who are rushing off for the school gates at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they work flexibly to do that. When they leave the office, they're in a rush, they rush to the school gate, they get the kids, they get home, and then they're trying to juggle things. they still don't get that quality time. Whereas on a Friday, because it's actually time to themselves they didn't expect to get, they really, really value that. And value is a word that keeps coming through all the time. But they do, because they can put the kids into school and actually do something for themselves instead of always that rushing from the desk to the school gates and back again.
Could I ask a question? It's Lee Lorraine. Do you think it's opened up a different pool of talent for you? You talked a little bit about employer brand earlier. I can't remember if you used that terminology or not.
Absolutely, in terms of employability and the talent pool we'll be able to attract has really surpassed our expectations. I think with people who have been in really successful roles for a number of years and maybe wouldn't have taken a risk to move jobs for, you know, some extra financial benefit on a yearly basis, but the 4-day week really captured their imagination, and they got to the point where they understood the value of that and the impact it was having on themselves as an individual and their families. So absolutely, we attracted some brilliant talent in Scotland, who are very much part of our strategic team that I know we wouldn't otherwise have had on board if the 4-day week wasn't in place. And similarly, in Europe, particularly in Spain, because they worked very long hours, and in the area we're in, Malaga, still had the traditional break for siesta for 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day. So people going out to work from 8 a.m. until 8 or 9 p.m. for quite poor paying conditions. So to come into the market with a great salary and benefits package and the 4-day week meant really we could attract the best of the best, and that's really helped to expedite our growth in that region.
I mean, and from our perspective, I mean, we're a trustee company. We are so boring, right? No one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go work for a trustee company. It's not career aspirational, right? But we've got all sorts of people who want to come and work for us now because they perceive our employer brand as being innovative and funky. And I mean, we got described as uber cool in the India Times. You know, no one's called our company cool, let alone uber cool. But so the employee brand, I think, is really important. So we are attracting a younger crowd. We are attracting more talented people, and we're keeping them. You know, in this market, keeping your staff is huge.
And Lorraine, I know that because I've heard you speak at other kind of events on this topic, but I know that also in addition to accessing the wider pool, you now have people applying for jobs that don't exist yet. So so that's made recruitment easier. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the outset, you know, we spend significant investment in job advertising and recruitment consultants, and I'm sorry if there's any recruitment consultants on attending, was a significant cost, and it's one we've actually been able to save in the bottom line from the 4-day week, because we still get on average between 300 and 500 unsolicited job applications every single day coming into us, and that's now not just the UK obviously, but across Europe. And that's phenomenal for us. We've got an in-house HR onboarding team who are going through some really fantastic and attractive applicants every single day. And we've always been quite entrepreneurial in our spirit. So if we get someone that really catches our eye and we don't have a role for them right now, we would still create a role if it was someone that could really bring some exceptional talent to the business and made that proactive approach. So yeah, it's been fantastic, and again attracting the right talent, and also the saving in the bottom line from not having to have that recruitment expenditure.
And
that's obviously sorry, Charlotte.
Sorry, jumping in. There are lots of recruitment companies doing a 4-day week, right? So you know, despite the fact that Lorraine was apologizing there, one of the largest industries doing 4-day week is recruitment.
All I was going to say was, I guess that's maybe a benefit to the 4-day week, and obviously all the other things you do on flexible working that maybe people don't foresee. You don't think about the fact that you save on those kind of advertisements and recruitment in that way, whereas you guys are receiving hundreds of applications, which then you don't need to suspend those costs, and people might not have maybe foreseen that as a possible benefit again.
Of course, you know, it's a really important point to make, because I said earlier we had to justify this a lot with our finance team. I make them sound terrible. They're actually really nice people, honestly, but you have to justify that everything's not a cost, it's an investment. So for them to see that cost saving and that budget could effectively be removed because of the inward attention the company was getting was fantastic. And we'd had taste of that before. You know, we do every year we take all of our staff away on holiday for 4 days in the winter to get some sun. COVID's kind of scuppered the plans for this year, but every year in the past we've done that. And whenever we did that, and they posted in their own social media, and our staff are our biggest brand ambassadors, so they would share their stories and getting whisked away on holiday, and it would feature in the media. And after that, we would always get a real surge of inbound inquiries and applications. So we knew that by putting ourselves out there and by showing that you can be different and that you really do value your team, again, that word value, then you would get that back. So we were always confident it would have a good effect, but not at the level that we've had. It really has surpassed our expectations.
Can I ask a question? And then I'm lucky I'm getting to ask all the questions I have, but please, if there's anyone else in the audience who has questions for the last 10 minutes, are there any things or any common mistakes that organisations might make from the outset that might be a wee bit of learning from some people in the audience?
Overthinking it.
To go first.
It's the biggest mistake. And Lorena, you probably see this as well. People try and overthink it, and they try and plan for it too hard, and they try and predict every outcome. It's why the Wellcome Trust failed in 2018, I think it was. They said that they found it too operationally complex. It's because they tried to overthink it too much and didn't actually just run the trial.
For us, I would think it's employee engagement and making sure that everyone is on board. Charlotte mentioned earlier, everyone at every level has to really buy into it. So it isn't a departmental decision, it's the company. So I sit on a board of directors of 4 of us. We're all just around 40 now. I love to say under 40, but we're just surpassed that mark. So we're all around 40. We've all got fairly young families, and we wanted to create a company that we would want to work for. So we enjoy the 4-day week, and we take it, so it's showing from the top that everybody can enjoy this, and supporting our managers, our staff, our junior staff to all do the same. We had a problem, an issue with one line manager who wasn't as on board, and when they had targets to hit, would, I suspect, apply some pressure to have people in on a Friday to do that. And we had to really stamp that out, because it's not about presenteeism, and we couldn't have it being favoured one department over another, or hierarchy. It was one for all. It's a team effort, and we're all in this together. So employee engagement and making sure that at every level everyone's bought in is crucial.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have another question. Thank you, Stephanie. So have you seen specific equality improvements from 4-day working week, such as attracting applicants from wider equality groups than previously, for example? So when we're talking about that kind of wider talent pool, are we seeing any equality benefits from that?
Absolutely, we have, and we've found people saying to us that actually in previous roles they didn't have the confidence to ask for flexible working for the fear of what response they would get, or for fear of what their peers would say. You know, if they're part of a busy team and they're dashing away at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or working 3 days or 4 days a week, does that put additional strain on their colleagues and their peers, and what impact will that have on their relationships within that team or that department? So people who really wanted it or needed it didn't have the voice before, and I think with us really championing flexible working and always doing that, and then with the 4-day week, it's given people the confidence to ask for it and actually give us some really great feedback. You know, one of our male staff has 7 kids, I think, and still going, and you know, he said for him, although money is so important because he's, you know, the provider for a big family, actually having this extra time has been so important to him, and he's got so much from it that he wouldn't have thought was possible to ask for before, because perception would be that the mum would take the time to do that. And for him, he's felt as though he's had the benefit of being engaged with other parents at the nursery and being at the school gates on a Friday and actually getting to enjoy that experience that otherwise would have been overlooked. We've also got some employee case studies around some people with aging relatives, older relatives that they're now assisting in care for. And for them, they find that time obviously invaluable. It's not time that they'll ever get back. So being able to do that is hugely beneficial to them. And again, it's not something they think they would have asked for if it wasn't a standard policy across the business. So short answer, yes, absolutely. It's helping everybody.
And don't forget, equality is not just necessarily about gender either. It's about access to work. So if you're not if you're not 100% well, you've got a mental or physical health issue, and working 5 days a week is just a physical impossibility, then actually having an employer that allows you to work shorter hours, you can be just as productive in that time. I mean, I'm a big fan for anybody that's struggling with that, and obviously in Lorraine's model where they close on a Friday, not quite so simple, but I'm a big fan of the Wednesday off. Who can't just work 2 days at a time? It really improves access to employment for so many people who are struggling. People often say, well, Friday's our least productive day, that's why we're having it off. But actually, why? You got to think why Friday's the least productive day. But if you're taking Wednesday off, you can always say, I had yesterday off, or I've got tomorrow off.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I'm having no problems with my mute, switching my mute on and off today. There's another question from Gary McClements. Do we know how many companies in Scotland have already moved to a 4-day week? Goodness, I don't have that answer. I'm not sure if Charlotte or Lorraine, if you are.
I don't think anybody has that answer. I mean, there are lots of companies like Lorraine and I who we're such advocates for this. We talk about it all the time, and people connect in with us, and they talk to us. And so there's no real data. Henley did some research a while ago, which will be well out of date by now, because not every company talks about it. So there's lots of businesses out there just doing it. It really is, but it'll be more widespread than you imagine.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any other questions for our speakers? No, I've got one. So we're talking about Scotland here. So are there any reasons that either of you can think that make Scotland more or less favourable to the implementation of a 4-day week? Would either of you like to?
Anyone answer that?
I don't think so. I think, having implemented the model in Scotland and in other countries, I don't think it's been more or less difficult in Scotland as it's been anywhere else. It's how you engage with your employees wherever they are. And I think, if anything, this pandemic's taught us that presenteeism's not required. People can work anywhere effectively and achieve success in their roles at whatever the time of day that takes. So it's about finding that balance of working hours versus output and success, and collaborating with your team to do that, whatever they are.
I guess not that it would be more or less easy to implement it in Scotland, but I suppose there could be a huge benefit for companies in Scotland, because if you think about Scotland and regions, they're all quite small, so employees can work in so many different places. They're not if you live in Glasgow, you could work all the way in Edinburgh, for example. So it might be a benefit for employers, if they, like Lorraine's company, who implement a 4-day week, that they could attract kind of more employees from across the area. I don't know if I'm making sense, but because we're such a small country, that might be a huge benefit for employers.
Oh, I can see that as being, I can see that as being quite a good, it's an excellent point.
We've had another question come in, which I think will need to be the last one anyway before we finish up, just so that we're running on time. What or has there been any impact of COVID-19 on working from home on a 4-day week? Have you guys seen any changes or any impact on staff or companies?
We've not personally. We've had a lot of our team working from home during the periods, and I think for us what was important was to continue the real feeling of support and well-being, although they don't have that sense of community within the office. So a lot of our stuff was translated across to Zoom and Teams. You couldn't tell from me today with nothing working, but I promise we do it quite regularly. So our normal lunchtime fitness classes, for example, went online and went on to Zoom. And same with our mindfulness things. We would have a morning coffee catch up, 5-10 minutes every morning. Everyone grab a cup of coffee and go online, just have a chat, because what we need to be aware of is some people feeling isolated and not having a support network at home, and making sure that they didn't we didn't compound that any further by not having them in the office. So whilst they couldn't get all the benefits of escaping the house, particularly during lockdown, on their Friday, it was about making sure that they felt supported in their week as a whole. And that worked quite well for us. Unfortunately, we had a couple of staff members who lost family members due to COVID as well. So we wanted to go over and above and make sure that they had that support from their peers and from the business. And we'll obviously continue to do that going forward. So it extended beyond working hours, but into social stuff too. So as you've seen, we've all done our quizzes now on Zoom, but quiz nights and race nights, things and social events, and keeping up that part of our culture remotely.
I think culture is the biggest thing. When I'm talking to businesses around the world and they're looking at what their new normal will look like, culture is at the top of the list. How do I maintain culture if I've got people working from home? But research is also, especially out of Europe, is showing the real threat of this overwork, which I talked about earlier. People that when you're now sleeping at work, the ability to just quickly check your emails before you do something else at home, or quickly just hop online and just do a little bit of work at the end of the day. And so as employers, it's really important that we create a structure to the workday that takes into account the flexibility that our people need, but also puts boundaries around them and stops them. We're humans, we're terrible at turning off, right? We just jump back on. So I think we have to be careful to make sure that as employers, we really have to apply some discipline for ourselves, not send emails at ridiculous times, but in giving our staff the ability to switch off.
Listen, we're out of time again. So thank you. So it doesn't look like we've got any other questions from the audience. So I just would like to thank both of you for contributing, Charlotte and Lorraine. And Charlotte, I hope you don't have too long a day ahead of you. This with you being, I don't know, what is it, 6:30 or something now?
It's 6:30 now, so that's fine. No, I'm all good. So look, people are welcome to follow me on LinkedIn, and we do have a white paper on our 4-day week website, which has lots of really interesting and free information. Andrew has written a book, The 4-Day Week, and I believe there's another book in the UK as well. So, just the resources are there. Go find them. I'm always happy to chat.
Thanks for sharing your story. I'm really sorry we can't see your face. But no, it's really good just to hear of a local, a Scottish example of and a very successful example. So thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your insight. And I think the one thing, we're always going to reflect, aren't we, on what we've heard and learned and things. But I really like the idea of, Charlotte, when you said about designed by the people but signed off by the board. I think that's a really interesting thought to finish on. So I hadn't really thought about it like that before, but it is just so true, isn't it? So,
it's a collaboration.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And as Charlotte said, there's plenty of information out there for those of you that want to explore it a wee bit more. Let's see what lies ahead. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.